It's disgusting when trad cons are so bad that they make me side with feminist. Emma, in this case, is the feminist that I'm siding with. She's a man hater. And yet I'm siding with her over these stupid trad cons that are so male hostile. This guy who calls himself an actual justice warrior, which he isn't. He's just another man-hating trad con. Trad cons are feminist. They're just another arm of it. Now, before we get into this, what are they going to be talking about? They're talking about trans women sharing the bathrooms. And the reason I say it, because I'm going to point out beforehand, lesbian predator 28 who attacked a woman in a nightclub toilet before a second victim revealed on Facebook she did it to me too. Women are more likely to be attacked by lesbian women in the toilet than a trans woman. Yet, why aren't women concerned about that? Right. So, this whole talk about trans women in the bathroom is anti-male. So, we'll get into this.
Greetings and salutations, loyal viewers of this channel. My name is Sean, and today we got to talk about Emma Vigeland's appearance on Piers Morgan because she was absolutely horrible in every possible way, incredibly rude, and it was embarrassing, and yet many on the far left are praising this appearance, which is exactly why they have no pull with the general public.
First of all, they aren't far left, dude. They aren't far left, they're feminist. Anyone who supports kicking out trans women out of bathrooms, women's bathrooms, men out of women's spaces, is a tradcon slash feminist. They're man haters. Left wing is supposed to be progressive. Feminism is regressive. It's a hate movement. So don't call it left wing.
Exactly why people don't listen to them or why they rejected them electorally, and I find this to
No, people listen to them. It's not Emma on national television giving her spiel. Yeah. Women are giving their voices on national TV. So you are just obviously wrong.
be absolutely hilarious. Now, we're going to get into this, but before we do, I want to thank everybody who supports this channel via actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money.
Can you imagine this guy calls himself an actual justice warrior? These right-wingers do it all the time. They know calling themselves right-wing or conservative is a shit label, so they always try to steal someone else's.
Money. Give me the money. Okay?
Sarah McBride replied by saying this is a blatant attempt from far.
Oh, by the way, again, guys, look at Emma here. All you guys who say feminists are fat, ugly, dyed-haired women. She has no tats, no piercings, gorgeous face, long hair. Beautiful woman. I just want to keep pointing that out.
Are right-wing extremists to distract from the fact they have no real solutions to what Americans are facing. To which I say, well, I'm not even vaguely right.
Okay, he just told a bold-faced lie. This guy is a tradcon conservative. All his talking points are right-wing. This is what I'm talking about. Right-wingers know their views are crap. And so what do, they say, I'm a centrist or I'm a moderate. These cowards can't even own their own ideology.
And I think it's wrong that biological men who've become trans women should be in women's spaces.
You're not vaguely right, Piers?
No, I'm not.
She's calling him out. This is how terrible she is. She's calling this lying asshole out. Piers Morgan is a liar, period. This coward can't even own his own shit. He's such a disgusting lowlife. I'm actually siding with this feminist who hates my guts because I was born a man.
Just listen to a
I would
segment
say I'm in
where
the center.
you agreed with Glenn Beck,
No,
one
I would
of
say
the
that,
furthest
yeah,
right
exactly.
commentators in the country repeatedly.
But
but
rather
apparently
like,
something's happening
hang on,
the web
I
because
haven't finished
Bill
yet.
Maher
I
and
haven't
someone
finished
you
yet.
saw on TikTok
I haven't finished yet. Let me ask you a
is being
question.
hysterical.
Oh, by the way, also, all she's doing here is pulling a Piers Morgan. Whenever I see someone who is on my side in an argument, Piers Morgan talks over them and doesn't allow them to speak. So she's just giving him a taste of his own medicine. She knows what this asshole is like, and so she's come armed for bear. And notice Piers Morgan, being a tradcon woman worshiper, lets her walk all over him.
Go
Let
ahead.
me ask a question.
So right off the top, I want to point out what the strategy is going in for Emma Vigeland, because she said this post her appearance on The Culture War, which is a podcast that I was actually on with her, and that is to never be invited back, to be such a lefty progressive, such a defender of your ideological beliefs that you are not invited on the program because you're such a big girl fighter. But in reality, in actuality, all she's doing right here is being rude. Now I know
No. She's pulling a Piers Morgan. She's being rude. He deserves it. And again, she's not left. Feminists control the left. That doesn't make them left-leaning whatsoever. They're regressive. The KKK isn't left-leaning, and neither are feminists. So you see what's wrong, guys. These male feminists, these tradcons, they try to take away feminism out of the left wing. They want to fight the left wing. So they actually agree with feminists.
Emma Vigeland is the kind of person who has a mug on her desk at her office that says polite women never make history, and she's very proud of that. She internalizes that message because oftentimes when you grow up incredibly privileged like Emma Vigeland did, going to an elementary
But that's wrong anyway. She's wrong anyway. There are a lot of soft-spoken, feminine women that speak on the right that get their voices heard. So she's wrong anyway.
school that costs $40,000 a year due
And you're right, she is privileged. She's a beautiful young woman. She's top of the pyramid. Doesn't matter whether she comes from money or not.
to the fact that your parents are U.S. attorneys / corporate attorneys, you end up deciding to invent struggles to fight against, and this is exactly what is on display here. But this gets
No, she doesn't invent anything. She hates your guts. She's a feminist. She hates your guts because you were born male. And that's what her struggle is. That's not an invented struggle. She's part of an actual hate movement. And hate movements have their enemies. They have their victims that they want to dehumanize.
gets into a territory that is so dumb and so embarrassing as we progress through this that it is just pure comedy. It's honestly one of the most bizarre things I've ever seen in my
If it's pure comedy, how come you're so worried about it? Because it isn't comedy, it's effective. Feminism is the most successful hate movement that's ever existed. Not just a successful hate movement, it's the most successful movement, period.
my entire life, and
So it's serious business. And this guy isn't laughing. Does he look like he's laughing? No.
I don't feel all that well going through the course of this video, but we're gonna power through because I want you guys to see it through to the end.
Yeah, go ahead.
I do not identify, and I know you believe a lot in self-identity. I do not identify as conservative
I don't know
right,
what that
okay?
means.
Yeah, but you are, asshole. Every talking point you've ever used is conservative and right wing. So this coward, Piers Morgan, can't even own his own shit. He can't own his own label. That tells you everything you need to know about right wingers. They know their views are garbage. They still want to push those garbage views. So what they do is they push them and say, I'm not that.
I'm like Bill Maher. I'm just completely bemused by the woke left and how nuts you've all got, right? And I think this
Bill
election...
Maher's an old
Yeah, I'm neutral like Bill Maher. I'm going to talk about the left and the woke. That's not right-wing talking points, is it?
Hang on, let me finish. I
libertarian
haven't
who's
asked you a
bitter at the
question
world.
yet.
I mean,
Let me ask you a question.
sure.
Right? Here's my question. If I, as a man,
Looks like she's giving him room to speak, so this guy's exaggerating.
who identifies as a liberal, if I can see why it's so wrong for biological men who have now become trans women to be in women's spaces, to be in women's sport, to be.
He talks about sports, but it's the spaces. There's a difference between spaces and sports, right? I can understand women saying, I'll never win again against, these trans women are just too powerful. But he's talking about spaces. This is what he's concerned, the bathrooms. And that's why I pointed out at the first, lesbian women are far more dangerous to women in the bathrooms than trans women, right? So when this lesbian woman attacks these women, no one says, hey, maybe we should have separate bathrooms for lesbians. Protect the straight women. No one ever says that. And here's another thing about Me Too. This woman didn't come out and said it happened to me too until she saw what this woman typed, that she was a victim. Why didn't she use Me Too hashtag? Because women who are actually assaulted just want to bury it and go away. So anyone who uses the Me Too hashtag is a false accuser. She's doing it to gain sympathy points and to attack a man. Just letting you know again.
Everywhere in women's lives where they historically were not biological men supposed to be. Why are you not as exercised by this as a woman? I don't get it.
So right here, Piers Morgan.
Well, the answer is simple. She's defending her attack dogs. The feminists who control the LGBT, they want the trans women to attack men. So she's defending her allies. That's all that's going on here.
And asked her a straight up question, a question that should not be confusing to anybody out there in the world, which is, why is it acceptable for biological men to compete with women in their sports, especially when you consider the fact that female sports are designed not to maximize competition as male sports?
Again, you're being dishonest because he also mentioned spaces, and that's what they're going to be arguing about. So jumping to sports, see how it works, guys? It's the Mott and Bailey strategy, right?
Sports are. They're designed specifically to have a carve out for women that limits competition to biological women.
They're all about women's rights.
First of all, absolutely. I host a sports podcast. I care deeply about sports, and I believe that anybody that identifies as a woman should be able to participate in the sport as long as it abides by the particular bylines or guidelines.
You know it's wrong. You know it's unfair.
Said sports league.
And Emma responds by saying she hosts a sports podcast and she cares deeply about sports ball. But let's be honest, based on her takes on sports as an issue, this is somebody who knows absolutely nothing about the topic. It is actually embarrassing the points that Emma brings to the table on this particular issue. And again, I don't know why, it just feels so bizarre.
But actually, we're talking here about Nancy Mace, who loves a camera in her face and loves attention wherever she can get it. I find it pretty disgusting that she is basically implying that this trans lawmaker, just by being in her presence in the bathroom, may rape her.
Exactly. Right there. This isn't about men being, defeating women in sports. This is women hating men. They don't want men in their spaces while invading men's spaces, right? And not allowing men to have their own spaces. And I just want to point out that this is what this is about, and lesbians get a pass. There are more lesbians than there are trans women. I would put money on that. I haven't looked up, but lesbians have always been around. They've never been kicked out of the toilets. And do lesbians attack women on the regular? No. But trans women don't do it any more than lesbians do. See? So this is all about saying men cannot become women and have female privilege.
do choose to speak up for women's rights. I believe that I do so on my program, The Majority Report, regularly. And I'm disgusted that Nancy Mace has decided essentially to support Donald Trump wholeheartedly, who has been found liable of sexual abuse in court, and multiple of his cabinet appointments, picks, including Pete Hegseth.
Is he behind bars? No, then he's not guilty.
And Matt Gaetz have been credibly accused of sexual assault themselves. So
a couple.
So you can see what she's doing there. She wants to attack the regular guy, but she wants to protect her allies. That's all that's going on here. Emma is a typical hypocritical, double standard man-hater, right? And I'm I'm siding with her in this particular case because these trad cons are such man-haters. They're actually overshadowing her.
Of things that I just want to straighten out for you guys out there in the audience. The issue of bathrooms is something that I do not give a damn about. And the reason why I don't give a damn about bathrooms is because when there is a big ass line for the female bathroom, it is very often the case that women will end up using the men's room.
See, this guy doesn't want to call himself a hypocrite. So in other words, pal, because women use men's bathrooms, they've given you permission that you would argue the other way around. But you know that women who slide in the men's bathrooms, the men aren't hostile to them. In the same way, you can't jump over to the women's bathroom. And you know it. Women would call the police on you.
There are plenty of gender-neutral bathrooms. This is no big deal to me at all whatsoever. That being said, Emma tries to pivot this to talking about how certain people in the Trump administration have been credibly accused of sexual assault or sexual misconduct. And what I will point out is that they try to push this on Matt Gaetz on The View, and Sunny Hostin had to read an embarrassing legal note because what ultimately ended up happening in that particular case is that the DOJ investigated it, and they found no grounds for criminal charges. And this idea of somebody being credibly accused is not.
This is the only thing he says that's of any worth. Right here. Right here. Credible accusation, as he says, is a way to accuse men, say, this guy's guilty, even though he hasn't been proven guilty.
Non-existent. Either you are guilty of the crime, either it's been proven out, or it's not. Credibly accused is just a way to attach more legitimacy to an allegation rather than actually go through the adjudication process. They've been accused, period, point blank. If you want to talk about the specifics of the evidence, feel free to bring that up. But as of right now, none of the people that she talks about have been convicted. And again, they have just been accused.
So,
yeah, there you go. There you go. Exactly. Those women on The View, they need jail time for slander, if nothing else. They need to be sued heavily for slander. But if I had my way, they'd be behind bars for false allegations.
apparently it's triggering for her because
Well, when you
someone's
say
genitalia
credibly
may be
accused,
slightly different
all
in the
of them,
stall next
when you say
to
credibly
her.
accused,
Well, but it
the
doesn't
last two
matter
names
to
you
her that
mentioned have-
Trump
the
has
last
been
two-
found liable
Okay, you
of
can't just keep
sexual
talking.
assault in
All
court.
right.
Piers,
Time out.
Piers,
Time out.
has Trump been
If he was guilty of sexual assault, how come he's not behind bars? Trump's opposition did everything they could to get him in behind bars. If they couldn't do it, obviously it was a lie. He wasn't guilty of any of that.
found liable of sexual assault in court with
Trump was
Carroll.
found guilty in a civil action. He denied it, as you know.
Found
And in case of
liable, exactly.
So these scumbags, Piers Morgan, he doesn't want men, the average Joe Blow, becoming female and enjoying female privilege and entering their spaces. But he'll protect, Trump tooth and nail. Even though Trump isn't guilty, the fact that Piers Morgan makes an exception for him tells you everything you need to know about these right-wing scumbags.
And the case of Gates and Pete Hesketh.
So the preponderance of evidence went in her direction.
Talking.
And he's she's been
All right, keep
and
talking.
he has been accused
Let
by
me know when you
dozens of
finish.
women.
Let
There
me
you
know
go.
when are you finished?
I'm done.
Okay.
I'm done.
When we have a
There
debate,
you go.
the customary for the host leads it, and you respond to questions, okay? If I may be so bold.
So again, Piers tries to respond to the credibly accused nonsense, and Emma uses the tactic of being rude and talking over people. Again, cite the mug.
All she's doing is fighting fire with fire. Have you never watched or listened to Piers Morgan?
On her desk that says polite women never make history, which is something that Emma tries to live her life by, even though, again, she is completely irrelevant and ridiculous. But
She's on national television, dude. She's not irrelevant. And if she was ridiculous, you would have nothing to talk about. No, you take her seriously because she has to be taken seriously. And this is another tradcon right-wing strategy. Try to downplay. He knows this is about men versus women. He knows that, or I should say, women versus men. They attack us. He wants to fight against it, but he also wants to give in because he doesn't want to fight against women. So instead of saying this is a horrible person, he says, "Oh, this is so ridiculous." Right.
brings up the Trump case where he was found liable for sexual abuse, which is what they ended up doing with that E. Jean Carroll case. And I will point out that people are very skeptical of that. That case was brought in 20 years later. That was in a civil court, and it is currently being adjudicated on appeal at this moment in time. That being said, if you want to throw that out there, I say that's fair game, especially again when you have Nancy Mace making this issue about bathrooms rather than something that is far more winnable for the Republican Party, for the right wing, and for the American culture overall.
Okay.
I'm done.
When we have a debate, the customary for the host leads it, and you respond to questions, okay? If I may be so bold.
Now, again, what Pierce does.
But Pierce is the one who mentioned women's spaces. He didn't just say sports. So he's the one who's going for something that, according to you, is unwinnable.
Realize is going on right here is that Emma Vigeland is intentionally trying to be rude, intentionally trying to talk over him because she thinks that this makes her look reasonable if she just keeps spitting out her talking points.
No. She's making her argument to a guy who she knows will talk over her if she lets him.
And never actually addresses the issue. But remember, Emma has a sports ball podcast, so she definitely knows a lot about sports ball. She's very smart on the topic of sports ball, so we're going to get to her sports ball takes very soon.
The point is that Hesketh and Gates have categorically denied any wrongdoing, and none has been proven against them. In Trump's case, it was a civil action, as you know, not a criminal action. The criminal case against him was shuffling paperwork over an alleged one-night stand with a porn star. So it's not quite how you...
There you go. And this is almost 100%, if not 100%, of all Me Too allegations. Right?
categorized it. Deborah Lee, let me bring you in here.
Has this trans lawmaker been accused of rape? Has this trans lawmaker
No, but actually, if you are a congresswoman...
I also want to point out that you can see Emma's dumb face as Piers Morgan tries to correct the record, and I find this to be amusing, and again, she ends up deciding that she's gonna jump in and say, oh, what about this trans lawmaker? Has she been accused of sexual assault or any...
That's a good point, though, because this is more valuable to me, right? Because this trans issue is an attack on men, right? So again, there's the lesbian predator. I'm glad she's being jailed, but people don't extrapolate what she did as an individual to lesbians on a whole. They don't say there's something wrong with lesbians in general. And that should be the same with trans women, because trans women are seen as men. Now, this clown goes on, but I think we've gotten to the most important part. He's just going to repeat himself. The fact that I am siding with a feminist shows you just how regressive and man-hating conservative tradcons, well, that's what a tradcon is, how tradcons are. Tradcons are just feminist. And this guy with the Superman suit, the actual, what's his name? Actual justice warrior. That's what he is. He's a man-hater. Jeez. Well, there you go. I'm going to end it here. And again, he calls himself the actual justice warrior. And Morgan says he isn't right-wing because these tradcons, these right-wingers, They can't own their own shit. That's how disgusting they are. I spit on these guys.